Your 3-minute limit on how long you can speak. So if you would like to speak, just stand up and then. That's cool.
Hi, my name is Matt Dennis. I look at Washington. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. As many of you know, my name is Matt Dennis. I'm the mobility manager with Interfaith Caregivers. I'd like to speak today to request that the nonprofits be allowed to present their projects, as I have concerns regarding how projects have been presented and analyzed. On page 49 of your agenda packet, you'll find the staff analysis and staff summary of our project, both of which I find inaccurate and misleading. To highlight a few of the most substantial, our services are significantly different than the shared ride taxi. Ours are provided free of charge. We are on time at a time, i.e. there is no window. We are door through door, meaning we can help them get out of their home into the vehicle and assist with things like carrying groceries. We go cross county and we wait and accompany clients, along with doing multiple stops. So I have to ask out loud, how many of you would rely on the shared ride taxi for your parents to make their medical appointments on time or grocery shop without help? Our services are as different as your private vehicles are. With respect to the full cost benefit analysis in the staff summary, all I can remark is that staff recommended a $4.5 million construction project with 14 full-time staff and maintenance projects supported by no scrutinizing analyses. And in a number of cases, just 11 words. This is a long overdue maintenance project and recommended for funding. Moving on to the legislative considerations, the $78 million fund is misleading. Our project makes no mention of public charging, and that notwithstanding, the DOT plan proposes only a single public charger location in the entire county as part of a highway corridor, bringing the total number of chargers to 4 countywide, which is completely insufficient to maintain the electric vehicle fleet we propose. And the proposed legislation in the next line, barring public charging they referred to, that was an amendment proposed in February of last year that was defeated in March of last year. So I don't know why they would bring up old failed legislation for a part of the project that doesn't exist. I don't have time to go through the misrepresentations of our project in the summary, or how they contrast with the glowing summaries of staff choice projects, but they're substantial. And all of this, combined with the complete dismissal of all nonprofit projects on page 12, I find that to be a major disservice to the community. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to invest in the future of the county. This kind of capital will not come again, and so I must encourage you to carefully scrutinize the recommendations in front of you. And for these reasons, I request that you allow all the nonprofit proposals to be presented, that you may judge the project without a filter for yourself. Thank you.
Next up, name and address.
Okay. I'm Ken Massioli. I live in Mequon, 3728 West Sherbrooke. I'm an interfaith caregivers volunteer. I've been doing it 20 years, and I just want to tell you about what service I do, because I've seen it firsthand. The mission is to allow seniors and disabled people to remain in their homes. And I've done, we keep track of how many rides you give. I've done 389 rides today, which I'm kind of shocked to see that. And I've seen how effective it is in allowing people to stay in their homes. We take them to grocery stores, we take them to medical appointments, and store vehicles. It is a wonderful service for people. You'll hear some more about that. I started driving with my own vehicle. Now we have a couple of wheelchair vans, which I assist with, and I'm also a wheelchair driver. But the people who need this service are people who can't get out of their homes on their own. And sometimes we're the only way they get out. And let me give you an example. My favorite client is a lady who lives in Mequon in a condo. And my first trip to her was about 6 years ago. And I was taking her to Frederick for a cardiologist. She came out of her house with a bag on her shoulder and a bunch of tubes running, and I didn't quite know what that was. She got in the car and I inquired, and it turned out it was her heart. It was a portable heart. Her heart had actually failed, and she was using this heart until the heart would come up for transplant. took her to the doctor numerous times. And I asked her one time, how do you intend to get, if you get a call for your heart, how do you intend to get there? And she said, well, I think I'll call Uber. I said, really? You gotta be there within 2 hours of the time they tell you. You're gonna rely on Uber to get you. So I told them to call me at any time and we find a way to get her there. About a year later, I got the call at 11 o'clock at night. Took her to the hospital. She had the heart transplant. She is still living now 4 years after the transplant, still living independently in her home. To me, this is a rewarding work that we do, the important work. And I'd ask you to strongly consider this proposal to allow us to use funds to purchase electric vehicles, because it will reduce our costs, provide more effective service. I'm going to remain a volunteer until I become a client.
Hi, glad to be here. My name is Jacqueline Jostock, and my address is N44, if you want this, W6033 in Cedarburg. I live in an apartment on the second floor. I moved here from Chicago 3 years ago because of COVID, and one of my families lives here. I actually so. And my age is, I'm not going to get another driver's license, for example. I have a stiff neck. I'm not going to drive again. I haven't driven since about 2014. I used to love to, I actually want to, well, I mean, without interfaith caregivers, I am not sure what would happen. It would not be nearly as accommodating for me. My family does live here in the city, I mean, not the city, the town of Cedarburg, out of town. They lead their own lives. I have been never near them, never, which is unfortunate, but I'm saying for now, that's why I use other transportation. I don't want to get into their lives. Yeah, you know, that's not fair. I have my daughter taking me to everything. And is there anything else? I really don't know where else to go with this. I just love interfaith. Now, I have taken the bus also. I have a lot to say about the bus. I don't think I want to go into that now. I'm not here representing them. I'm representing the lovely service I get at Interfaith. I appreciate your listening, and I hope you don't forget us. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Paul Schultz. I'm the executive director for Interfaith. Our office is at, as Matt mentioned, 2360 Dakota Drive in Grafton. I've been the executive director for just over 4 years. I want to thank you all for taking the time to hear us out and accepting and reviewing the ARPA projects. Our project outline is for electric vehicles. As everybody is surely aware, gas prices are going through the roof, have been for quite some time, and we find that to be a significant barrier to recruiting volunteers to provide the services that we do provide. StewardPAC has identified this as well, and we are looking for a means by which we can alleviate the burden that our volunteers are taking on, which is utilizing their own vehicle, their own wear and tear, their own gas, their own insurance. And as I said, gas is a big time variable for what we're contending with. So folks that are interested in driving for us and providing the services that are vitally needed in the community are finding it a difficult proposition for them to do so when faced with rising gas prices. We don't know where it's going to be. Many of them folks say that they would love to help us out, but with gas prices the way they are, it is a non-starter for them because many of them are on a fixed income. Electric vehicles, number one, are green. We would be able to put a charging unit at our facility and a few other areas throughout the county. They would alleviate gas prices for us. They're much cheaper to operate. Maintenance costs are minimal. I know that in our proposal, we talk about Teslas. Teslas are the state-of-the-art vehicle when it comes to electric vehicles. We shop for them. I know our project is just shy of about 1.3 million. We are looking for any opportunity to maybe figure out something in the middle to compromise. We are not stuck on Teslas. We're looking at better electric vehicles and to provide services for our county, our services for our seniors, such as Jackie here, and to continue to expand our missions and provide as much as we can to the greatest degree we can. So I really would like to have an opportunity to go through the line by line what our proposal is. The summary that was released recently, some of the facts that are in there are not exactly accurate. And before we make a decision on whether or not our proposal is viable or not, we'd like to at least be able to present and clarify some of the areas that we have question on. And in the end, if it is a no, it's a no. We will rest that we've done our part and you've done your part and have all the facts on the table in which to make that analysis. So what we'd like to do is just respectfully request a full analysis and presentation with a Q&A on the project. Thank you.
Could you leave a business card before you go?
Yes.
Unfortunately, public comment doesn't allow us to ask questions back and forth. Public comment. Public comment is exactly what it's called, public comment. We can't have dialogue back and forth. That's the question. I'd like to ask you, so.
Absolutely.
Any other public comment? None? Forward. Approval of the minutes from October 31st. Motion made by Nelson. Second by Noah. Any discussion? Discussion, there being none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Next up, we have resolution 22-38. Labor agreement with Oakland County Sheriff Deputy Association.
Hi, Rusty. I was gonna do this under the correspondence. Whatever, I'm sorry, it's not in it. I just wanted to take a minute to introduce Karen. Karen's in our office. She's been in our office since September. And she is learning the minutes and attending meetings. And so I just thought y'all should get to know her. It's Karen. She's been in the county for 14 years, right? 15 years with the county and has joined our office.
She's 14. Sharon, you've been here how many?
15.
15. And where do you hide?
I currently hide in the county clerk's office, so prior to that, I was hiding on the third floor in human service.
Oh, you there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. So what you're looking at for you is a resolution to amend our collective bargaining agreement, 2021 to 2022. Agreement with the Sheriff's Deputies Union. We used Attorney Andy Phillips of Foley's Law to represent the county. We met with the union twice, once on November 3rd, once on November 29th. So there, most of the changes that you're going to see are just provisions that sort of clean up or remove outdated language or just sort of clarify your current process. There are really two significant changes. The first one has to do with vacation. Currently, members of the union, they cannot use vacation in their first year. So we're recommending that that be changed to they cannot use vacation until their field training is complete. And second change of vacation is a revision to the vacation accrual schedule. Currently, we have two vacation accrual schedules for union employees. One is for those hired before July 1, 2011, and one for those hired after the date. So employees hired before July 1, on their hire date, they start at 3 weeks of vacation. They move to 4 weeks of vacation after 6 years, 5 weeks after 14 years of service, and 6 weeks after 24. Those hired after July 1st, 2011, currently they start at 2 weeks, they earn 3 after 6 years, 4 after 14, and 5 after 24 years, and they do not have the ability to earn 6 week vacation. So the revision to this vacation accrual schedule, this was recommended by the union, and the county and the sheriff would agree to the proposal. So this
union has accepted this.
The union has, yet they ratified it. So with this change, employees hired after July 1 would start at 2 weeks. After 3 years, it was the 3, and then they would hit 4 years 4 weeks and 5 weeks vacation at the same intervals as those hired before 2011. Hope that makes sense. And the other big one were wages. So, like I said, so the prior, our current agreement is a 2-year agreement, we are recommending a 3-year agreement. And we're recommending a 10.5% salary lift over the 3 years. So we're recommending a 4% increase on January 1, 2023, a 3% increase January 1, 2024, a 1% increase mid-year at July 1, 2024, and a 3% increase January 1, 2025. So the county feels comfortable with these amounts. Even with a 4% increase in 2023, it still would not make us the leader in wages against other local law enforcement, even against their 2022 wages. I think it will put us in a position where we can be competitive for recruitment and retention.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit, Chris, regarding who, not necessarily naming the leader, but how close to the leader, where we fall on this?
Yeah, I mean, if this is approved, I mean, we'd be within a few dollars of the max, so it's pretty close. But we're certainly not going to be the leader in Ozaukee County compared to the other local municipalities. And
Where are we now? Middle?
yeah, no, I mean, we're not the top, we're not the bottom.
No, it's the same. But it was closer to-
Yeah, let's say so.
Chris, why didn't you take the captain part of it out of the first part? As far as,
First page.
first
Yeah,
page,
that's
as far as filing complaints or whatever that is. It was sheriff under sheriff and for the captain, but now it's just the sheriff under sheriff.
Yeah, that was a cleanup proposed by Andy Phillips. I don't know the specific reasons behind it, but you know, we have no concerns with that in the union, so no concerns as well.
And our sheriff and fine with that.
Yep, yeah, the sheriff has approved all these changes. So yeah, every change here, proposed change here has been ratified by the union, it's approved by our sheriff, Andy Phillips. HR.
But if a captain had a problem, you just go to the sheriff or under sheriff.
Yeah.
Probably has some statutory component to it, or statutory with sheriff or under sheriff.
Oh, that may have been it.
Are the only two officers in the department that can discipline an employee. Speculating, but I bet that's, I bet that.
And maybe Phil works on so many of these bargaining agreements, so, you know, comes across one issue somewhere else, find that we need to update it and see it incorporated in other locations.
Chris, what was the increase last year?
Yeah, let me, pull it up. I think it was 3, I'm gonna say it's 3, right? Close.
Chris, in this, the chart on page 4, you show like normal work week, you have 40 hours. And the next week you have 41.25, or you have 8.89 hours, 9.1. So what's that?
Yeah, we have some positions, yeah, just some positions have different, their expected weekly number of hours are just different.
Because of the way they do 5-2-5-2 schedules. Because of what? They do a 5-2-5-2 schedule. Oh, okay. Yeah, so it kind of.
Yeah, a little different pay schedule than a regular 40 week employee, right?
So if they do that, then it's more hours.
Yeah.
So it's just, that's the.
So, but is that hours at regular rate or is there overtime?
That should be the regular rate.
Okay. For the 41.
Yeah.
Because of the 4 on 3 off.
Yeah, because there's different standards in the Fair Labor Standards Act for law. I'm not sure. So it's just not some time in the Fire and Police Commission. Yeah, there's all different ways to calculate law enforcement
wages in terms of the Fair Labor Standards Act, how you set up those overtime rates.
And the increases of the last year, 3% increase. The year before that was a split, 2 in January, 1.5%. July 1.
Thank you.
Just a quick, so 5252 is, their schedule never changes then? They're always working the same 5 days? What's that?
5253.
Yeah, it's in the contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 on to 5 on. These 5214.
What is that? Thank you. 5 That's a problem. Yeah, so the average work week for employees should be 40 hours, and the sheriff shall establish regular work schedules based on 4 work days, 2 days off, except for those classifications which have been scheduled 5 work days, Monday through Friday, 2 days off, Saturday and Sunday.
Everybody good with that?
Somewhere, Chris, I don't find it now, but there was a comment about the employee had an option of buying into the retirement. One time opportunity to buy in. Remember that at all? This is for. Would you grandfather the.
That was in the use of Word docs, right?
Well, that's what
No, this wasn't any issue that was discussed.
Oh, that's probably something I sent you on jailers.
Oh,
There's
I
legislation
don't-
from the,
Oh, that's
that's separate from this.
okay.
There's legislation circling in the state of Wisconsin.
That's what it was.
For duty disability for jail.
Yep.
Personnel for counties that don't
Yep.
allow them to participate.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
That's, now I remember, okay.
So that's
So,
something the sheriff's association, the county's association, and the legislation are working on.
but that's not gonna be part of the labor agreement.
No, yeah, they
So-
still, in fact, I think that legislation still bars them
Oh, is it?
from collective bargaining.
Yeah, that was a separate, yeah, okay.
So that's a different issue. I think I sent that to you, it's in Record McGuire, because there was some interest in
Yeah.
that policy.
That's exactly what it was.
Yep, yep. We don't have to
Okay.
do that.
I'm all set.
We have a motion on resolution 2238, motion by Supervisor Wolf,
Second.
second by Supervisor Nelson. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Next up, we've got county board process for the ARPA project approval.
Yeah, so, you'll see all the project information that we collected, for you, obviously, this is just a discussion, I just, there's no action today. Just like to know what, this sort of comes on the heels of the discussion that we had at the December county board meeting, where, some of the supervisors expressed a desire to,
no more, or, so we had supplied information at that point, so I'm still collecting. We were allowing people to apply, all that, I think, I think Thanksgiving time, so, yeah, I'd just like to know how this committee, because ultimately you are the committee that will approve and recommend to the board, how you want to proceed with the next steps in reviewing and presenting these projects. Obviously, they were all received, reviewed by staff. I think you see the staff recommendations, are the ones we recommend to be funded with county funds, including CDR project at the Lasada campus, completion of the tower project at the Pinnacle site, salt brine building at the highway department. So these are really 3 large-scale projects that the county would likely have to borrow funds to complete in the future. So we thought this fit nicely into the ARPA funding bucket, if you will. A couple grant matches, including one grant to repay the county-owned portions of the interurban trail. We secured a grant almost of $1.4 million, so it requires us to match that grant.
Is that from the state?
Yep, from the state DOT.
Didn't they do that before and then the joint finance committee denied it?
It was approved, yeah, it was approved by the governor at one point, but the state Supreme Court, I think the Republicans filed a lawsuit, and we were one of 2 projects that were struck from that original DOT.
Was that one for the whole?
It was the whole trail, right? If I remember correctly. No, this is just the county-owned portion. We actually tried to get the state to sort of consider doing the entire trail, but due to the time and as the application was due, we kind of threw it in there, but we didn't have a lot of backup information for some municipalities. But this will basically take us all the way from county line, the county line in the north end of the county, and then all the way down to Port Washington and some sections.
Which is in the worst shape.
It was they were the sections that were paid first, yeah, when the trail was initially installed. So they, obviously leveraging $300,000 to receive an additional $1 million or so in funding to complete a project that we've long struggled with. Completing makes sense. Also, matching for a grant at the Hawthorne Hills structure, so we're building a storage and bathroom facility out there. So this will be used to kind of create the public bathrooms at Hawthorne Hills, which are essentially providing campsite on site there. Couple larger scale maintenance projects, including the fire panel at the Justice Center, long overdue, as well as the tuck pointing project at the Justice Center, which is, again, that's one we started picking away at over time. For those of you who don't know, that the original brickwork was done incorrectly when that built. This was rehearsed, done incorrectly, but this would complete the project to fix the tuck pointing and flashing around the windows that leak during rainstorms. And then we've talked about providing the parks director has quite a backlog around it, an ungodly amount of projects in queue here. So obviously we wanted to provide him some money to do some things in concert with the Natural Resources Committee, and then also finish the secure entrance that we had slated for this building that went out to bid initially, came in quite higher than we expected. We kind of went back to the drawing board and we'll continue to do that. I think we're gonna have some additional discussions with the sheriff's department in terms of how we can best secure this facility. So quite a few projects here on the county side, obviously, and then we have a number of projects on the not-for-profit side. So the summary detail provided to you. I think if we would The staff would recommend that if we wish to fund some of these not-for-profit projects, that we would tap into the EMS funding. We set aside $5 million to do EMS funding. I think it's highly unlikely that we will expend that $5 million. You know, those initial estimates were done with the expectation that this program would have began almost a year ago. So it took a little bit longer to work through some of the details of the contract for items that we had to work through with the municipalities. So we'll have our first quarterly reporting at the end of this quarter. Is that correct, Jim? Yeah, we're assuming that municipalities have started to expend these funds, but I think, you know, at least in our conversations, we're comfortable with sort of setting aside a portion of that money for other projects.
So
If there's some-
we're not extending it later, even though we started later.
Well,
We can,
yeah.
oh, I see.
So, and honestly, we don't want to find ourselves in a position where we have a great deal of this EMS money still set aside and have to kind of quickly expend it or return it back to the federal government. So, yeah, we really just wanted to, well, I really want to discuss with the committee how you wish to proceed. You know, we did plan to use our mid-month meeting this month to kind of tee some things up. You know, and kind of discuss projects and allow for Q&A. I don't know if you want to have formal presentations. You know, do you want to key in on certain things? Do we want to open it up? Do you want to know about every county project, or you know, should we use some of the parameters that staff thought were good parameters? Do we want to revisit the discussion of the not profits?
Martin?
A couple of things, really appreciate this analysis, you know, like other project process we have. It's come through tremendous. And a recommendation, I really like getting a recommendation too. You know, thank you. I wanted to confirm that the two parameters on page 11, was that first one supposed to be would not require debt issuance to complete? I'm assuming that's what that means. And number one there, projects so they were 6 feet or page 11.
Well, I think we're saying these are projects that we would if we wanted to complete, if we want to build a CBRF at Posada, which has been a long term vision out there, we would normally, under normal circumstances, we would have to issue debt to complete that project.
Okay, so it isn't.
So we would grab keying in on large.
You're keying in on projects that we otherwise have to.
Yeah, that was the intention.
Okay, I'm reading them wrong. Thank you. That's, I
To
wanted
say,
to clarify.
you know, we have this ability, we have these funds available from the federal government,
Because I was.
rather than go down sort of the traditional path of taking on debt, especially in a higher interest rate environment than the county had. What's that?
Yeah, I was
So
looking at
that's
that
where
word.
we're,
I was looking at the word complete as to finish.
okay.
I'm thinking, well, that doesn't make sense to, yeah, but you're
I
saying
think
to
it's-
do the project.
I think in terms of the CBRF at Posada, it's probably, especially, you know, this really benefits the county if, you know, if we're gonna build a CBRF, if we're able to cash finance it, you know, we don't have to say it helps with cash flow, which is the main.
Exactly,
main
all in
concern.
favor of that, so that makes sense to me. And, you know, I think that seems to be the one, you know, in the list, that's the elephant in the room, right? The 4.5 million out of the 8-ish that's left. And with our capacity of what, 65 beds and 130 or 106, whatever we're at, you know, does this still make sense? I'd like to hear more as to why it makes sense still in the current environment to do a CBRF. Because that's the big piece. I really like the idea if it looks like there's gonna be money left over from the EMS, that we repurpose those funds. Very, very much so. And I'm struggling with the fact that we invited all the NFPs in and said, you know, think big and dream and, there's this big pot here, we could potentially do things, and then to come down to, the county has a list of priorities and legitimate, very important things that need to be done for our constituents and our county, many of which are, cost savings and grant coupled and make tons of sense. There's no money left for any of it.
But I don't think that's the intention of the way, really, but it's the same. Here's what we see as county priorities, and I think what we want from the committee, for is how these priorities and the priorities of the not-for-profits match.
So
I think you said
A lot.
last when you said all the descriptions and all the different information that we got. And we told our staff, that's what we want, and that's what we got.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things.
Well,
We have a lot of members on our county board that are concerned about our elderly, because of the elderly, we're all here. And we all told them, care. Large group of county board supervisors. So when you put that project into the queue,
Big splash in the pond.
it's a big splash in the pond, but it also is taking care of our elderly, we should always, because, we just should. And also, it's a profitable enterprise.
Well, that's what I want to see, 'cause
That's our
things,
biggest
things
thing.
have fluxed so much, so I want to see that, I want to see how this still makes sense. Because I agree with you, we're in this business that we want to take care of our elderly, and, Interfaith makes a great, case for taking care of our elderly, and they do some tremendous work. Many other organizations as well. So I guess kind of getting to where do we go from here? We're the ones ultimately, if I understand this right, Mr. Chairman, we're gonna make a recommendation of this list of projects, whatever it is. And including or not including some FP money and whatever. So I guess I'd like to see, have an analysis done as to how much EMS money might be purposed. And then see exactly how much money we have. Is it 8.0 or is that 9.0 or 9.2 or?
Here's actually, if you want to see that.
Yeah, I think financials on
I believe it's minuscule right now.
But we have not expended much, we're just,
Yeah.
we received $17 million.
One minute, as far as what EMS.
Yeah. So 5,000 earmarked for EMS, 2,000, 3 million,
5 million.
5 million earmarked for EMS, 3 million for some county projects, and then $1 million for the Justice Center building. So they're kind of detailed.
Yeah, thank you. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
that's
what I
I think you sum up the 5 million EMS.
Yeah,
Help
yeah.
Get an idea of where we're at, looks like we're gonna do that.
But we're not spending a dime yet. Right. Yeah, and like I said, we'll have.
yeah.
That's what I meant when I said minuscule, I was spending,
Yeah.
it was the EMS money, not what we've already.
So it'd be good to have an idea, I think it's, it's the 8.011 million gonna go up by how much and whatnot, and then, maybe just to throw us something, how do we get board input? Because I think that the board members, our fellow colleagues, want to have some input in this and not an after the fact input, not an after our recommendation, now we're gonna pay it on the floor. And I'd like to get their input as to what they think the priorities are, so we could come with as close as possible to what is the will of the board, right?
Which is, that's why we're discussing this today.
Yeah, okay.
So we can have our mid-month meeting in February, we can take a chunk of projects and, we can't, there's no way we can have input on every project. We can, but we just can't do it all in one day. That's why.
I think what we talked about last meeting too, the suggestion was to encourage members to contact us. And maybe ideally you contact your committee chairman of the committee you're on, and feed him or her the information, what are your priorities? What do you think? So all of my committee members will be talking to me, not necessarily talking to Paul, about what they think the priorities should be. And I carry that message back here. We all carry the message back here. And that would be an avenue to get their input into this. And then maybe today we should highlight some of the ones we'd like, as you say, a presentation on for the mid-month meeting to explain further. Or maybe it's this list that there's time to go through this whole list. At the mid-month meeting, right?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to my people on finance in my committee office.
Mr. Chairman, Jason, and a couple of the recommendations here, they talked about whether using ARPA funds, but using opiate funds. Where do we stand with that? Are they all available?
We do have some available, we have
We
received some, yes.
But it's limited to what you could use it for.
Yeah, right.
Well, if it's limited, then it makes more sense for where it can be used.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Well, we're asking.
well, yeah,
It's required.
they can, that or lose it, right? Or do we get that regard?
And I'm sorry, I meant to ask Jay, I don't know if we have a known accounting of what the count. So Walgreens, CVS, and Walmart just settled. I think it was a $20 billion.
So we've actually received some money, yeah.
So the distributors have settled, the pharmacies have settled, that was a $20 billion settlement.
Yeah.
That just happened, we don't know how that's gonna impact. We don't know what the Ozaki County will receive from that. And the manufacturers have yet to settle, although some of them, like Purdue has declared bankruptcy. But those funds need to be used for opiate harm reduction. I think when we talk about some of these projects like the Serona requested, develop behavioral health treatments are, that's something that would lend itself nicely to the use of those opioid funds.
But it can't be used for homeless or for cars or for things like that.
Correct.
Okay.
But I think mental health, behavioral health, and addiction issues can be addressed with those.
So,
And that's a stream of revenue that's anticipated, obviously, if these companies all stay in business. That's a stream of revenue that we anticipate, that those settlement dollars flow in over a number of years, 20 years.
do you have a feel how much we physically have now in hand?
I feel like it's $250,000 or so, maybe it's.
So that might be $250,000 per year or $250,000.
Oh
Was it? Johnson made a 2-year payment, so we have 2 years up front. But I guess my question, if you recall the last meeting or so or before, we had an opportunity to take a lump sum payout. Is that?
No.
That's going away
That
now?
in itself is, that was the G.G. Wentworth cash settlement approach. I think that's come into some legal question because the settlements require the settlements require that the funds be expended on opioid harm reduction. So if a portion of any of these funds are used in terms of to prepay the settlements, they're not necessarily being used for that. So I think there's still some work being done on that initial push.
Because it's a shame.
Yeah, I think
I'd rather have the money up front.
I think it's that there's a percentage test. I think it might be 85% test.
Right.
It has to be spent on direct opiate harm reduction. And if you the word is it's not capitalized. Anyway, if you if you get those settlement funds prepaid, the amount you receive is less than 85%, so it likely would qualify under the settlement guidelines. So we may be, even as we as we dug into that a little bit deeper, you know, it wasn't that advantageous to, yeah, to do, especially, yeah, with today's interest rate environment, we took it very true.
Probably is.
Well, I think it depends, yeah, well, there's risk both ways, right? Right. So I think one of the things I didn't address was, you know, what's the risk? You know, it would still set aside a stream of revenue. So if another one of these, you know, if another one of these organizations went bankrupt, or filed bankruptcy, what happens to that? And those funds were really used to guarantee the revenue to the lenders that were lending the money. Anyway, we don't know that that's an option.
Okay.
And if it was, I don't know that it was a really good viable option regardless. But I think those funds are a great option to work with our human services, our law enforcement, our public health, as well as our not-for-profit partners in those areas. You know, I think there's projects from Stroll, there's projects from United Way, there's projects from some of the other organizations that that can probably align with the way that those funds need to be expended.
Yeah, I just saw it, the mention, the staff had mentioned that this would be a good use for it. And I said, oh, yeah.
And I've had some preliminary conversations with Liza as well as Sheriff Knowles on that. So I think there's a lot of interest in terms of how we set it up. So we kind of behind the scenes have the ball rolling.
Well, there's two people, it should be, yeah. Good. Well, in that case, as Marty was asking, why don't we have discussion and analysis brought on these highly rated county projects? We can start there.
Well, especially those stop projects, I think. I'd like to see more.
Oh, for sure, that one will, you know, we've engaged a consultant on that one, obviously, we've had him on for a long time, so he's presented to the Human Services Committee in the past, and I think we would want to have him back. And he'll talk about many different, you know, in terms of market.
See if we can get him in the event.
Yeah, I've already reached out to him, so hopefully if not, we'll have him at a meeting giving this presentation on market as well as how this project specifically works and you know, within the finances of the campus. So I think there's total agreement amongst our administrative team that would be the number one use for these funds, that project specifically.
You know, can I just say that, you know, when this ARPA first came up, I mean, we talked about the EMS and that got going with.
Yeah.
I think you recall, probably talked a few times about it. I kept bringing up the LaSalle because that was one thing that we've been talking about for years around here, trying to accomplish that. And I know there's a lot of support for it on the board. That was before we even talked about any type of nonprofits or anything. That we had some serious, you know, some important priorities for the county that we need to try to take care of. And I thought that was definitely one that should be on top of the list. Okay.
Yeah, I think those two larger scale projects are probably the two. I think everything else can be moved around, and we can figure out how to do other things at other times and then try to plan things out. Those two large scale projects I think are really critical.
Yeah, and the summary of you did with the highly rated projects, I agree with Supervisor Williams. I think that was done very well.
Supervisor Julio?
No, and one last thing, and you brought up a good point that, especially with LaSalle too, there could be, I mean, the project itself, there could be some positive cash flow revenue from it. And I think you know, we're already always concerned about doing a good job at LaSalle of the whole campus, and this can help the whole picture.
So we have $8 million, right, basically, and then maybe $9 million with.
Yeah, or whatever, I think we can.
We don't know that. But, so what's the process? Do we spend what we want to spend and then stuff there goes to the nonprofits or?
We've already made a promise to them.
For how much though?
Finally.
No, I mean, I don't,
We certainly did.
who made that promise? I don't.
Well, we had a meeting out at the ice.
I don't know, I don't recall it.
Well, that's it.
Well, they'll tell us, and they'll say 10.
Did you have an understanding how much was going to be allocated to the nonprofit?
It was right around 5.
So we go back in a minute.
Yeah, you know, I'm just saying. We sat around and we said, we would probably allocate 5 million of ARPA funds to the nonprofit.
Supervisor Wolf?
So it is a known fact that my memory is not the best.
That's why you have me.
That is true. However, I have been very much opposed to committing any of these funds with the exception of the project fund that we did, because it just made sense to do it. We're gonna spend money anyway. Why not spend restricted funds versus unrestricted funds? Total sense. But on projects, but I was even against the EMS commitment of $5 million. I voted for it because it is important, but to do it in that time frame, the way we did it, I thought was just completely not what we should do. So I think I would remember if we were advance committing another large chunk of this money, like you're talking about, Rick. I don't recall that at all, any promises made.
I recall that not only that meeting, but another meeting at the county board when we brought it up.
I don't think so. I know Supervisor Irish, who's not here today, is very much for committing funds to the nonprofits, but I don't think he would even say that that was the case. And we could go back and.
Well, I agree, Supervisor Wolf, I know that I've talked about this, like for, you know, a year now or so, about the way we've been doing this. And again, the same thing, I was for the EMS, but to do it beforehand, ahead of everything else, I was even questioning that and the way we were doing some of that. And I wanted a process like this, and we've talked, I've talked to Jason about this many times, about trying to get it all on, you know, out there so we can get an analysis of what we're gonna do. But I'm sure I don't recall anybody ever saying that, not when I was involved.
Do you recall any number being thrown out?
I do not, but the county board would have to commit the funds, so,
Right.
you know, obviously the county board has taken no action.
I'm just.
The only funds that have been
We
committed.
threw it out at the high school. When we had all the nonprofits there.
Well, I think we talked to be in general terms about what we have.
And on that fund, and we said,
But for a long time, I was.
I mean, I wouldn't. Why would I pull that number out? I don't know. Okay, let Julie check that.
Maybe that was a whole thing, that there's something we committed to, because I don't.
Well, I think that was a informational meeting that we had there, it wasn't a county board meeting for one.
Right.
Two, we had all of
Well,
those
I
sectors and we all picked, you know, hey, this would really be good if we could help United Way, oh, this would be good if, you know, let's all take, and we had the nonprofits in there.
Right.
But I don't believe in any time a supervisor said, you know what, let's give $5 million to the nonprofits. I mean, that might have been numbers that were out there, but that was never any numbers that was sent to the, we'll look at them. Yeah.
So I can tell you, there was no action at those meetings, and that there's been no action at this committee on anything except what we have here, you know, what we've already committed to.
I believe they were all discussion items.
EMS, some capital, and the sheriff's storage.
But that's what we have minutes for. And then we're all that one recorded.
Correct.
Any other discussion on the staff analysis?
Just about the, taking some EMS money out of there. What happens if we estimate it's gonna be $1 million less and then there's more? How do we cover that, those promised funds? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like we promised $5 million. We say, yeah, it's only gonna be $4 million. Well, if it comes in $4.5 million, how do we cover that money that we took out?
well, we still have our capital fund as well, which is in the $2.5 million. I'm not, I'm looking at.
You're saying if we overcommit to something,
Right.
I would think we'd probably be undercommitted and we'd have some projects like on this list that we can do.
Well, yeah, and we'll have a, you know, we all have signed agreements with the municipalities. They began, you know, I think in November of last year, sort of with our blessing to proceed. Again, our funds aren't intended to supplant anything that they have. There will be funding above and beyond their sort of normal budgetary levels. That's one of the requirements. That's very clear in the agreements that we had each municipality signed. So I think we'll have a much better idea where we're situating at the end of this quarter. I think if it's $1 million at the end of this quarter, we'll probably be back here to say, well, let's figure out another way to do this, right?
Well, we've had some expense in dispatching too, that we hadn't originally anticipated. Probably a good addition, but we did not anticipate doing everybody's dispatch.
That was levy, right? We just added that to the levy, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, again, it was covered.
Yeah, so that's covered.
Yeah, that's covered.
Didn't we have, although we just moved it, like I said, we had some capital requirements, but for dispatch, but I think we're just taking stuff out of that one.
Yeah, we're gonna take their councils and
Yeah.
repurpose,
Yeah.
place it in our dispatch center. There will be a request to purchase some software for the fire departments. I think we're gonna recommend that also come from this funding. But that's I think it's about $120,000 or so. So that'll go to the public safety. That's to bring the fire departments onto the same sort of computer-aided dispatching system as the police department has.
Anything else?
So what do we? You want to see information, obviously all the information we made available, right?
We're gonna like a recommendation over here.
Well, what do you want to see at mid-month this?
The,
County only? And how do we?
the summary of highly rated county projects, I thought is what we were talking
And
about.
how do we? Yeah.
And have a presentation, that'd be LaSada campus, IT communications, planning and parks department, highway department, and facilities management.
Yeah.
It's on this,
Yeah, okay. And
I think we start there, and I don't wanna overwhelm, when our second meeting is, we don't wanna sit there at 4 in the afternoon, start at night.
Do we want, would we like staff to look at all the NFPs and maybe rank the top 2 or 3 in your opinion as how those impact our constituents and maybe dovetail with our current county operations and whatnot, and bring those as well, or not?
Well, we can do anything.
Yeah, I know, that's, so I'm throwing this out as a question. Would that be a good idea or not? What do you think? Do we want you to, go below the line, if you will, and do some analysis there? I don't know. Maybe
I
we
guess my question, Marty, is a wise man once told me, county first, take care of yourself, And do we want the nonprofits to compete with these projects here? Or do we see how these score out, how people feel, and then we do it with nonprofit? Makes absolutely no difference to me, we can have them both there.
You can make a good case to just, as you say, leave it at this page and review that. There is some analysis, accurate or whatever, but to the best of staff's ability, they put together 2.5 pages of analysis on nonprofits, which we all have, which is good. Maybe we just leave it at that and see what our fellow board members, if there are some hot buttons there, and if we want it. I don't know, that there is, taking care of our constituents directly there's, you know, I come up with $8.3 million here. So you take this list, 7.5, add the parks for 250, add the entrance to the admin building at 500, you're at 8.3. Right here. Now, if we get another million repurposed from EMS, well, then there's room. And maybe then we take that and say, okay, let's take that and put that toward nonprofits. I don't know, I would think, I mean, I struggle with the idea of having, you know, we're bringing all the nonprofits in. We want their input and then not giving them anything, that just seems not a great way to generate goodwill. Well, amongst the thing, and we're not trying to exclude them, but the reality is that, I don't know, there isn't, I mean, we had more needs than we thought, I don't know what the thinking, what has changed from the idea of bringing them all in to begin.
Well, we might have gotten a little ahead of ourselves for one, but two, I mean, if we just do what we have in front of us, and then, and we know, and Jason can explain it, we can explain, that if we do all these, that would squeeze out the nonprofit. So if we want to do something less than that, then we have more of
Yeah, cut some of these or get some repurposed.
so I think that would be a simpler way to analyze it and then move on from there. And then maybe we'll have a better idea of how much is left in the EMS funding, and a little bit more of an idea of where we're at there. So I mean, if Jason tells us to, like, well, we have all that, and then we're gonna have almost surely $1 million or $2 million, how much of EMS left? Well, now we go, wow, that's, you know, that could give an idea more concretely where, how much would be there.
We could, is it bifurcate, is that the word, would it be the split of two?
That's a good word, but I've never heard of it.
So we've got, so, you know,
You love that, very good.
You could say, all right, you know, we're gonna get $1 million from repurpose from EMS, and now we can do this, so we got 700 left over, and let's put that 700 toward nonprofits and have a whole separate analysis of where that's gonna go, right? So when we can go, we're doing this, and we're set aside this for nonprofits, that's vote number one. And then go into phase 2, which would be to figure out where that 700 goes amongst the nonprofits. It doesn't have to be all at once, right? That gets us to mid-24. Does that one have to be committed? By the end of 24. Yeah, sure. So we still have time, Jay, wouldn't we? Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know, honestly, I think I think we always intended this to be a competitive process amongst county as well as nonprofits. So, you know, if there's a not-for-profit or a handful of not-for-profit projects that really rise to the top, then I think we should certainly discuss this. I think the Sorona one specifically, you know, I mean, that's clearly an opioid discussion that we need to have with them. You know, I don't, from what I understand from my conversations with Barb, you know, this sort of loss of funding at advocates has been resolved at the state level and will kind of continue to be talked about. You know, I've had some conversations with both the counties associations as well as our elected officials about that process, and it's, you know, at least with my last conversation with Barb, that seems to have been quelled. You know, $10,000 for tutor recruiting, I would argue that, you know, that this is something that the county wishes to do, it's handled as an annual process. It's sort of a smaller operational item, you know. The interfaith one, I think fits into the sort of, would fit into the ARPA bucket in terms of the parameters of being a large scale project, et cetera. The mobile pantry, again, that's kind of that's a small number. You know, if that's something we wish to pursue with them, we could. You know, we have a lot of competing food pantries in the county, so I think that's sort of, and we have another food pantry. Yeah, we have another food pantry that's asking for funding, so I don't know how that, you know, how those pieces all fit together. The solar project, I think, is one, it's a, you know, a great
project for the not-for-profit center. It's a great, I think solar project's a great project for Ozark County too, the way that it's, you know.
Except as long as it's not that.
I didn't say that, but
I did.
But we do understand that there's a big swath of money for projects like this in the bipartisan infrastructure legislation, so, you know, I think that it probably makes sense to key in on those. The portal project, you know, that's a nice little capital project there, obviously, we kind of fit into the budget.
Would Portal, fall under the, opiate? Probably not.
No, I don't think so. No. Now, United Way request probably does, and at least a portion of it does, depending on how that's structured and how we understand those opioid funds.
For the next year.
Yeah. The forward careers, you know, and this is purely my feeling, but I think it's probably a great idea if we're gonna do something like this. We should work with our local economic development corporation to undertake an effort like this, if we wish to move into that area. The OFS project is also, I think it's and I talked about this with them as well. You know, I think what I don't fully understand is if we did do this, what would be the impact in terms of other services? So that's a bit unknown to me, but it's probably, you know, a project worthy of discussion within this ARPA funds. The mental health at the Y, I think, is a little more operational, potentially an opiate discussion we held there. You know, building a pool at the YMCA, I don't know that that's something that the county should become involved in. Frankly, Blossom, again, you know, that's somewhat of an operational item there. The Mills project, I think, is a unique project. I'm a little unsure as what, you know, whether the subsidy would go to subsidize most market rate apartments as well as up to 25% apartments that are set aside.
Well, I think it's market rate automatically is
The population. Yeah.
well, no, but to me that. That's a development cost there, from my opinion.
So I think there's some that probably are a little more ARPA friendly, for lack of a better way to put it. Some are operational, and I think, yeah, some of them have been.
Is there a way that, you know, staff could rank those or distinguish those for us?
Sure. Yeah.
We need to face this as, if it wouldn't be for the ARPA money, we wouldn't even be having this discussion, right? That's job one. Wouldn't be for the ARPA money, we wouldn't even be.
We would probably be talking about senior.
That'd be the only project we'd be. Right? Also, anybody knows whenever there's projects, whenever there's money, a lot of individuals and a lot of groups and a lot of great places that we all think is a need in our county. You know, we have to always remember that we represent the whole county. You know, that there's gonna have to be some tough decisions. Simple as that. You know, whenever I said, and I mean, I've been here a long time, and there was a fellow that used to say, we can't be everything for everybody. And if you go ahead with that, and you score it, and pick the ones that we can do the most help countywide, and have, you know, start off with the staff scoring them, and bring them forward, and we would take it from there, so.
Well, as we talked before, there are some organizations that do things that need to be done that we can't do.
Correct.
Or they do it a lot more reasonable than we could do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think those should move on to the project.
We have almost $500,000 in opiate funds. In the bank. So it's
Oh, in the bank.
right now.
Oh, good. Thank you.
So, anything else? Otherwise, schedule a county board meetings, obviously we'll have our mid-month meeting and our March first Wednesday in March, and we'll also have a mid-month in March, I think, by what,
Yeah, probably, I think it's likely. We're gonna be
we're gonna be busy.
hopefully finalizing some
recommendation. Our next meeting date will be the 27th of February. 3 o'clock. Next up, county administrator's report.
I think we're on track to surpass $11 million for our sales tax collections for 2022. So that will put us almost at the level that we budgeted for 2023. So we're in great shape there. We had the auditors come in and they did some additional field work, if you will, 2 weeks ago. In general, our general fund is in good shape. So we're and we still have some financial transactions that need to happen here. A little better idea of where we are situated, and then we'll make a recommendation. Probably in February to the finance committee in terms of how we handle any surplus funds that are available. We talked a lot about the opioid settlement funds. We have about $500,000 available that need to be used for opiate harm reduction. So we've begun a process internally, and we'll reach out externally with some of the not-for-profit partners that will allow us to accomplish the goals of those funds. Wage study implementation went through on our last payroll, so that went through everyone got paid. So I think Chris is left. I think we have about 20 appeals today, which I think is in line with what we anticipated. And employees have until March 1st to submit through that appeal process. I would imagine as we get that line. We may see a few more. We've begun the effort to refresh the county website. Yeah. And actually had we had a little bit of a kickoff meeting with the software team as well as the key internal personnel. I think I will be recommending that we spend it. So this is included in our contract price. So this is done, it's basically paid for with our contract. So there will be no extra funds expended there, but I think I might be back with a request to do a couple things. One might be a logo redesign as part of this, as well as we can engage the Civics Plus, which is our provider, to do kind of a larger scale review of all our pages, kind of usage and things of that nature. So they'll go through all of our pages on our site and then go through department by department to help kind of folks key in on what. If we have so this website's been up for a decade. If we have a page that hasn't been clicked in a decade, we should probably put it in the archive, right? So they do offer that as a service. It's not very, either one of these is very costly. I think both of them can be done for less than $10,000. So we'll figure that out. Our medical examiner came on board on January 2nd. Kind of started with a bang and a big fire in the city of Mequon, out on Mequon Road. But he's been on board. I've heard great things from our sheriff's department. I've heard good things from some of the funeral directors in the area. So all good anecdotal evidence that he's hit the ground running. He's hired, I want to say 2 or 3 deputies. So he'll have a 20-hour deputy that'll kind of be his main deputy, and then he'll have some other paid on-call staff working through his office. So that's went very well. So quality candidate, he's moved things in quality direction. Local government revenue reform, I think this is an item that the counties association and the towns association and the League of Wisconsin Municipalities are working through the state of Wisconsin. I think it's likely that we can anticipate. I think the current iteration of the legislation that is setting aside an additional portion of sales tax to go to offset some county costs. So more to come on that. I think we'll probably work its way through the budget process.
But I think we can hopefully, see some relief from the state of Wisconsin. Yeah, this might be a replacement of shared revenue. I'm not entirely sure on how, so we have a small portion of shared revenue at the county. I think it's about $200,000, maybe a little bit more. The lion's share of our shared revenues is the utility revenue, which is substantially more. So we'll have to monitor how those two pieces are affected by this legislation. But it seems like at least the message is being heard at the state of Wisconsin. So that's good. And then finally, for those of you that were here, I think five or so years ago, we did a not-for-profit tour. We went around and viewed various not-for-profits. We'd like to kind of do that again in the spring of this year, just kind of give board members an opportunity to see. If you haven't seen the new not-for-profit center in Grafton, is very impressive building. The new OFS building is really a nice building and improvements to their operations. I think there's an opportunity to kind of just get board members to better understand what.
I think we went to Advocates too.
I think we went to Advocates, Portal, and then probably get Grafton, Circle at that time. So
United Way, you want to go
Can we go to the Port Washington?
we just go to your house. Because we just go to the Nelson's house.
The Port Washington office, so we
can stop there for a cocktail.
Yeah, they will end the tour.
Yeah.
Beginning.
There you go. Used to have them on the bus here.
Yeah, I remember.
I guess there's probably, there's probably some worthy discussion as to whether we want to see as a board some of the parks projects and other projects that we've completed, like the covered bridge, right? We haven't had a road tour for a number of years, due to sort of dwindling attendance. Yeah, but I think there's probably some value in going to see some of the, the Hawthorne buildings, the two parks pavilions that we're able to construct with that recent borrowing. And take a spin on the Highland interchange for those that haven't been. Yeah. Get out some. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, the not-for-profits have kind of asked for that, and I thought it'd be a good idea. So we should probably think about doing something as well in terms of county.
May, June, somewhere in that area when it's not muddy walking around.
Yeah, I don't think we want to do it in winter, but we don't want to do it early spring.
Yeah.
So I'll coordinate with them, and I know they'll appreciate that.
I have a quick question about, you said computers. Is this gonna go away? Is crossing question message that, you're always trained.
Yeah, so we're in the midst of switching everybody over from co.ozaki.wi.us to osakacounty.gov. As we work through that transition, board members who have that old email address are gonna, when like Tyler has a new email address, and that email, it's gonna look like it's coming from outside the organization, even though it's not. So once you're transitioned, you'll stop seeing that.
I had a message from Julie the other day that wanted to know.
Yeah, probably, and that's sort of one of the other issues.
I did too.
Yeah.
I didn't spend.
I got one here says cancel and things. Cancel.
I was just showing Marty, I just added the executive meeting, and so I say, this is send you agenda.
I got a message that you canceled it, so.
Good.
Was it quick?
Got more
30.
So yeah, so that's what we have for you today.
Any other committee reports? Anybody have any?
I guess I just have one, that we had a tax foreclosure of the property and there were a couple of bids. It was usually it's not, it's pretty cut and dry, but this was contested. And so I guess this coming up with Stewart property, the higher bidder was going to develop, a question whether they could, and found out that they can develop the land, and I think they can't. And then there was another party that a lot of neighborhood input district wanted to, because he lived right next to the property. So it was a difficult, tough call. We debated, but we even postponed one, from 1 month to the next, so we get more information, so. We came up with a choice, but it was interesting. Tough. Both good candidates, I guess.
Supervisor Wolf?
So our beloved historic covered bridge, it's been so long since we've been together. We, last year, the contractors were at capacity to take it. So we put the job out for bid in November, planning to do it over the winter, and, while the bid was out, and we were anticipating to see the bids, the DNR informed us that they were changing the permit requirements to require a survey for a queen snake and a certain type of snail. I contacted our state senator, and he got involved in the situation. And we also worked with our consultant engineer, who also was talking with the DNR about this. That, it's the middle of winter here. We want to do this in the winter. To survey for amphibians who are not present in the winter. Does this make any sense? Something
Or a snail?
A snail and a snake. And if we would have waited to survey for them in spring, then nobody would have capacity to do the work again in the summer. So this thing would have been closed for 2 years, which is why I'm pretty upset about this. Fortunately, and at the highway conference last week, our consultant said that Senator Strobel's office was instrumental in getting this back on track. So the DNR told us that as long as we get it done by March 10th, they'd be okay with it. Well, that was our intention to begin with. So we fast tracked it back out for bid, got the bids on Tuesday. My committee gave John and I the authority to award the bid on the spot, which we did on Tuesday. So we have a contractor who's preparing to mobilize and get this bridge repaired prior to March 10th. So,
A snail.
Yeah.
You know what the snails do? We jump to the turtle's back.
Whee! Actually a muscle. I don't think it was a snail, but it was a muscle. It was a muscle.
Yeah.
Nonetheless,
And
we got some
And that's what little boys are made of.
more rational minds prevailed here, and we're back on track. So I hope to have the bridge open so people can use our beautiful new pavilion that art is built.
A lot of rides were upset about that.
Oh, gosh, I know, it's crazy. It's closed all year.
They really.
Yeah, imagine another year, sitting there for another year. So, Lord willing, we'll have it all.
I just, if you haven't heard, we had a deputy that Sheriff Johnson had terminated falls. That deputy decided to come. And we, the committee, reappealed, reconfirmed the sheriff's decision. His option, his option was to go to court, and that we decided to do that. So it's the first time in 21 years that somebody is actually going to go to court and challenge the sheriff's decision and the committee's decision. That when we had the hearing, it was probably a good 8 hours.
I hope you learned something.
I did.
Is there any other committee reports? If not, at this time, pursuant to section 19.85, parent 1, parent C, the Wisconsin statutes relating to considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of a public employee is the county administrator's annual report.
Motion to go to closed session.
Ira, could you call the roll, please?
Supervisor Melton? Here, yes. Supervisor Wolf?
Yes.
Supervisor Nelson?
Yes.
Supervisor Polly. Supervisor Smiley.
Yes.
Before we start this, do we remember the $5 million
Well, I should turn off the. Let's turn this off too.